people are given permission to discuss topics. And I think it's so lame and weak that the majority of people will only engage in discourse in topics that they've been given permission to speak about. I've talked about this on the channel before, but for instance, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, spy systems, surveillance, the internet's watching. If you talked about it before Edward Snowden, people would call you conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat, paranoid. After the whole Edward Snowden limited hangout event, suddenly everybody had an opinion on surveillance, but they never actually got to the root of it. They would only repeat what the television trained them to speak on, and they wouldn't go beyond the media's narrative. Is everybody in on something? Is there like a big pension that you get to keep if you just keep your mouth shut and parrot the mainstream narrative? Because I'm not in on any pension program. I'm not bought off. I want to be bought off. I could live a much happier life if I could buy in. How do I buy in on this defend the status quo thing? Because I'm not getting paid off it, so I'm not going to defend it unless I'm getting paid. And if you're not getting paid on it, why are you doing it? So now, another topic, this is the topic for deep thinkers, is they've been given permission to go a little bit outside the box and talk about multiverse theory. Oh, that's so radical. And wormholes and quantum theory and quantum mechanics and quarks and CERN. Ooh, particle colliding. What could they possibly be? Actually, they don't even do that one. They stick to the multiverse. What if this reality is one of many realities? And that would be cool to talk about if you weren't already given permission via Neil deGrasse Tyson to have that conversation. See, I was having that conversation in the 90s, and everyone's like, "Oh, what the hell? What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Dude, haven't you read string theory and quantum theory, quantum mechanics, the multiverse?" Some of them might have seen, and even later on when What the Bleep came out, even then. But nowadays with Neil deGrasse, everybody wants to talk about multiverse, and they think it's so deep and so radical and so like, oh, I can't believe we're talking about this. This is just so crazy. How about this one? Let me give you permission to have a conversation. My life is on the quest to find out what the heck is going on. And I have a new premise. So instead of this multiverse premise where, it's kind of like time travel where we never know if we're back in the same reality. See, that one's inconsequential. How about this new reality? We are in an absolute prison planet that we can't escape. We're in a terrarium in an ant farm, and there are ant keepers, and they are keeping us locked in, and it's up to us to get through the obstacle course. I call it obstacle course theory. And it's basically this big, gigantic video game IQ test. They're seeing if we can escape. And not only is there a physical terrain of which we would have to figure out the physics of how it all works in order to escape it, but they then mentally enslave you and lie to you about everything in existence, from the distance to the sun, to the rotation of the earth, to the revolution around the sun. Everything was concocted, including human evolution, Darwinian evolution. Because in order to create the Darwinian evolution, they had to then create the field of archaeology to dig up fake dinosaur bones to create a 100 plus million history to life on Earth. Then they had to create the Big Bang Theory so that they could create 12 billion to 14 billion universal history, so that it wouldn't be implausible that the Earth's history was 4.5 billion years, that the Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago. They had to create anthropology to back the evolution. Archaeology, anthropology mixed with history. So they invented an entire narrative of humans, of evolution, of where life spawned from, the age of the earth, the age of the universe, and everybody believes it as fact when there's nothing to really prove it. There's missing links in the fossils. Carbon dating, no one really knows how to do it, to prove it. DNA, do you know anybody that knows how to examine a DNA genome sequence? How do we even know DNA is even real? And making a statement like that, this is what the people, they'll latch onto that and they'll say, well, what do you know? How do you? I don't care about them. They're trained poodles. You're just a poodle. You talk about things you've been given permission to. I'm going to talk about things they don't want you to talk about. So what's more dangerous, to think, oh, we might be in a multiverse, or, hey bro, we're stuck in the cow pasture. We better find a way out before they slaughter us and chop our heads off. I'd like to see that be the convo. I think that would spark the explorer spirit within. So get out there and figure out how this thing works. Let's escape. And let's find out how much they've mind controlled us. And we'll start with the distance to the sun. How did they calculate that? And you know what they won't go along with at all? At all. They won't even go there for flat Earth. And this is not to say that the Earth is flat. I don't know the shape. I haven't been to space. That's the only right answer. That's the only right answer. The only right answer is, I haven't been to space, therefore I don't know for sure. They won't say that. They will not. They won't concede that. They won't compromise that. They won't ever offer that. It's no. The Earth is a sphere. It rotates and it revolves around the sun, and the sun revolves around the Milky Way. And yeah, okay, prove it. Oh, well, but we don't have to prove it. It's been proven. It's been proven for 500 to 2,000 years. You just are bad at school. You couldn't pay attention, and therefore you go to these crazy conspiracy theories. No, I'm not saying the Earth is flat. I'm not saying the Earth is flat at all. I'm not saying the Earth is flat. I'm not saying the Earth is flat. I'm saying I haven't been to space. Therefore, I don't know the shape. And the only independent verification sources I've seen are people sending air balloons with GoPro cameras into space. Well, it doesn't quite make it to space. It makes it 130,000 feet in the sky. And from that vantage point, unless you have a fisheye lens on, you can't really tell if it's flat, if it goes on forever, if it's a sphere, if it's finite. You can't definitively make any of those conclusions. None. Not for the sphere, not for the flat, not for the infinite. It's incomplete details. And then they'll say, but we have satellite footage. And I feel like I'm repeating stuff that the flat earthers said. I'm not trying to be a flat earther. I'm not trying to be a flat earther here. But only because that's what gets latched onto, and what they do is then they try to shift it to you to have to prove the flat earth, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to say, hey, you haven't been to space, and I haven't been to space. I openly admit, I don't know. I don't have enough data. All I have are pictures produced by NASA. NASA's part of the government. Do I trust the government? Do you trust the government? Do you trust the government? So they will openly, gladly, excitingly have a conversation with you about the multiverse theory and the multiple versions of reality. But they will not even entertain for a split second that, not just the shape, because I don't think the shape is as devastating, as dooming as no rotation. If there is no rotation, then there's no revolution. And everything, from the most foundational concept that all things are based upon, is wrong. So forget about flat Earth. But flat Earth aside, people won't even entertain that their entire reality, everything that they've been taught, was fake, at least about space. But even the stuff about Earth is most likely fake because we're told that there's 7 continents. And we know now that the maps were drawn, not the, well, actually we don't know. We've been given permission to say that North America was drawn larger than Africa. It's trendy to say that one. I bet you'll point that out. Like, oh, there was such bias with the map making where Africa was drawn smaller than Greenland. Because you've been given permission, and plus that fits your little trendy narrative of race. So you'll say that one. You'll acknowledge that the maps were drawn not to scale, but you won't go any further because you weren't given permission to go any further. How about everything? Is everything a lie? Is everything a lie, John? In 1984, I'm pretty sure I recall reading that in order to completely control your population, you would need for everything to the most foundational concept, and I think the example was 2 + 2 = 5 in the book. Everything has to be incorrect. That way, you could find out who's in compliance and who's not. So long as everything they believe is incorrect, you could perpetually and endlessly fool them because they'll never have the equations to find the truth, and they'll never think that they need to have their own thoughts of their own. That's why you have experts in for everything, and answers for everything. So religion has an answer for everything. Science has an answer for everything. Every establishment, every institution has an answer for everything. They have answers for everything. It's called apologetics. The term is called apologetics, and they train you on how to answer every single question. Every business has an answer for everything. Frequently asked questions. And they do this, the reason for answers for everything is so that it takes your need, it removes the development of your own critically thinking mind to develop theories of your own. It's reinforced on why you are not allowed to have your own thoughts on papers, that you always have to cite an authoritative source. And it makes you wonder, like, how far does this go? So every authoritative source that you cite, and then you look up the bibliography of those books, and you keep tracing this back and back and back, what's the original authoritative source? So are we just basing everything off of Aristotle and Plato? Were they the authoritative sources? Where does it stop? Where does it begin? We give AP Press godlike powers. Whatever the AP and Reuters say, that's the truth. We give encyclopedias absolute power. Whatever's printed in those books, that's the truth. Those are the authoritative sources, or other publications by scientific journals. Those are the authoritative sources. So again, the authoritative sources are the sources that they control. How do they control them? Well, you want your funding, you want your pension, you want your money, you want to remain employed, you'll toe the party line, you'll drink the Kool-Aid, you'll say exactly what we trained you to say, and you'll only speak on things of which we've given you permission to speak on. So with this video, I want to drive, I hope the phrase of "you've been given permission to have this conversation," I hope that offends you. I hope it makes you want to not be that guy. If you are that guy, that's fine. Eat it, own it, move on, and start to have your own thoughts, speak your mind, especially if you're not bought off. And I understand, if you're in the system and you're bought in, you're paid off, you got that pension, I understand why you're going to toe the party line, drink the Kool-Aid, and say, yeah, this tastes good. 2 + 2 = 5. I get it. But if they're not paying you off and you swear 18 hijackers with box cutters hijacked some airplanes and ran into some